Cheaper, I know they're cheaper produce than the one I use.
Okay, that's not so bad at all. Looks like I've been overpaying for stuff. I feel like I've been overpaying for stuff now. Because I use like we call it fast and freight and stuff like that.
And you have,
I don't know.
there is Acnar, seems to be reasonable.
What's it called?
Acnar, I think it is.
Never heard of
They
it.
seem to be reasonable.
Hack.
Acnar, I think it's Acnar. Let's see if I find it.
600 euros. That's 2.7 plus 375. That's 2,000.
Yeah, Acnar invoice.
Never heard of it. Okay.
That's not the one I use, but.
Import, exports. Okay.
The right number.
I don't see the number.
Number there you can't see, man. At the bottom.
Oh, no, I see it. Sorry. 7807684562939. Okay. Thank you, Kito.
Yeah. All right. Can I? That's your right?
If I use
Ask you to that chair and you take this one.
faster fruit, I would spend $400 more if I use faster fruit. Lord Jesus.
Okay, so I said 5 minutes, not 10 minutes. It seems to be moving now. I'm going to get the current slide.
Okay, we can talk about it after class. So I guess it's unfrozen now. It's not frozen anymore.
No, it's not. You just needed a break.
What's that? Okay. Listen to something else. Should have WhatsApp. Include WhatsApp on this phone. We would have it. Fixed it.
All right, just to note, the 3076 in Moodle, the 3076 group, your slides are more detailed than this, right? They have more examples and so on. So you'll be able to see those examples. For 2005, you're responsible for what? I used 2005 slides today. It covers the critical points, but the 3076 slides are more detailed. All right. So just to wrap up on the duration and interest rate risk management part, I'll show you. We'll look at an example in the text, example 9.9, and then we are going to do workout. We're going to do sample questions. So I hope everybody has access to the text, because then I'll need the board, or I could use the piece of the board. Right, so the duration model, right? It's used to determine or evaluate, nice words, from the text, the overall interest rate exposure for a financial institution. So it takes into consideration not just the loan exposure, not just the interest rate exposure from your loans and from your liabilities, rate sensitive liabilities, but it also takes into consideration your investments, right? And so the duration gap measure is the duration of your assets minus the duration of your liabilities. And it's measured in years. It's measured in years, and it shows the mismatch between the assets and the liabilities. Obviously, just like with the repricing gap, the size of the interest rate shock, so whether it's 1%, 2%, the size is going to affect the risk exposure. All right? And so the duration gap is thought to be a better measure of the overall institution's interest rate risk. Okay? So I'm gonna switch back to the text. So I wanted us to have a look at an example from the text. So with this one, you have the assets, you have the liabilities, right? Your short-term consumer loans, 50 million, 1 year maturity. Long-term consumer loans, 25. 3-month treasury bills, 30 million. 6-month treasury notes, 35. 3-year treasury bonds, 70 million. 10-year, and so on and so forth. You have total assets of 270. Then your liabilities, your equity capital, which is fixed. So that's your balance sheet, so it balances. 20 million, your demand deposits, 40, and so on and so forth, right? Now, so that is the balance sheet. Now, 30-year mortgages, floating rates, those will be repriced when the interest rate changes. All right? So any floating rate is going to be rate sensitive. So if we were to look at, first you need to identify your rate sensitive assets, rate sensitive liabilities. All right? Short-term consumer loans, 1 year maturity, is that rate sensitive? No. It's 1 year maturity. It's a consumer loan, it's not rate sensitive. Long-term consumer loans, 2 year maturity.
Yes.
They may or may not be, depending on what the bank's policy is, right? 3 months treasury bills, is that rate sensitive? Yeah. It's rate sensitive in the sense that they are going to mature in 3 months. It depends on what maturity period you're looking at. 6-month treasury notes, again, depends on maturity period. 3-year treasury bonds, all right? Are they rate sensitive? It depends on the period, but they're rate sensitive in the sense that they have coupons, so the reinvestment risk for the coupons are what poses the problem. 10-year fixed rate mortgages, is that rate sensitive? No. Fixed rate, no. Floating rate, right? And then you look on the liability side, the demand deposit, your passbook savings, your 3-month CD, 3-month bankers acceptance. Those become rate sensitive because you're going to roll over and depending on the time. Now, so the mortgage, so the 30-year floating rate mortgage, in this example, they are reset every 9 months. Let me check something here. All right, so the rate sensitive assets, the consumer loans are repriced at the end of the year. the 3-month T-bills, they are repriced at maturity, 6 months at maturity, right? The 30-year floating rate repriced every 9 months. So total rate sensitive assets, 155 million. Remember the balance sheet was 270. All right. The remaining are not rate sensitive, so it's 155 million in rate sensitive. When you look at rate sensitive liabilities, 3 months CDs, they mature in 3 months and they're repriced when you roll over. 3-month bankers acceptance, same thing. 6-month commercial paper, same thing. 1-year time deposits, they get repriced at the end. So when you add those up, so 40, 20, 60, 20, that's 140 million of rate sensitive. So let's just go back up to the table. Okay, so out of the 270, 140 is rate sensitive. And remember, so 140 rate sensitive liabilities and 155 rate sensitive assets, right?
Okay.
So when you look at the 1-year rate sensitive assets, if you're looking at the 1 year, if you're looking at a 1-year gap, all right, is the 155 minus the 140, which is 15 million. Okay?
Okay.
You can also calculate the ratio, the gap ratio, which would be your gap or your cumulative gap, because you added the amounts divided by your total assets. So your gap ratio is your gap divided by your total assets. So your gap ratio is 5.6%. You know that from that, if interest rate exposure is positive or negative, you know what the level of exposure you have with the gap ratio. All right.
Okay.
So the gap ratio tells you how much there are 5.6% more rate sensitive assets than rate sensitive liabilities. Okay. Now I wanted to bring it down. Oh no. Anybody remember what page I was on?
203.
203?
Yeah.
Leave.
Is it no?
203 in
The page itself.
I'll check above and see.
203. No, it wasn't far off. You weren't far off. You were not far off at all. Maybe it's 203 on your phone. On your laptop?
On the book
Oh, on the book?
Yeah.
Oh no, when I search on
Oh.
Yeah, on the document is 226.
So, all right, so, we saw the gap was 15 million, all right? If interest rates were to increase or decrease, so the change in interest rates versus the change in your rate sensitive assets and liabilities will multiply that 15 million by whatever the change in rates is to know what your risk is. Okay? I'm skipping to, okay, here we go. That's the example I was looking for. So your the change in net interest income is your rate sensitive assets times the change in your rate. So if your change in rate is 1%, it will be the 155 million times 0.01 minus the 140 million, which is your liabilities, times 1% or 0.01. So your net interest income there is 150 million, right? So an increase in the rates, as long as your gap is positive, is going to give you a positive net interest income, right? So you want to at all times have positive net interest income. If the rate fell by 1%, all right, it's going to have the opposite effect, okay? You're going to have the opposite effect here because your interest-bearing assets, the amount is going to decline, whereas the interest-bearing liabilities, that is going to decline as well, but it's not going to decline as much as your interest-bearing assets. So if the rate fell, then it's a negative 150 million is your net interest income. All right, so the larger the absolute value of your cumulative gap is the larger the expected change in your net interest income. All right? Now, if your assets change more than your liabilities, you know it's going to affect your net interest income. All right, I want to have a look at the duration gap model that's actually in chapter 9. So interest rate risk covers 2 chapters, chapter 8 and chapter 9, right? So the duration gap one is in chapter 9. Okay. So I want you to do now number 8. It's 8. All right, so I'll tell you. So it says calculate the repricing gap and the impact on net interest income of a 1% increase in rates for each position. So number 8, that's your position, and you have to calculate net interest income. Is it 1%? 1% increase. So you have 3 different positions, right? So that's 3 different balance sheets. And so calculate the gap on the net interest income for a 1% increase in interest rates for each of those positions.
Bizarre. Excellent.
Sorry.
As long as it do that.
You finished, Siobhan?
Yes.
How are we doing in the back?
I'm finished. And I'm finished as well. At least I hope so.
If it goes up while I'm back, I'm just gonna touch it.
I wonder if I'm getting this distribution right. Please help me.
That's it. Yeah, that's what it is.
If she give us these numbers, I'll pay it. Why are you laughing? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, Carrie. It's hard.
Yes, I finished mine.
I always do that. Good things. An H? Interesting.
All right, so we have about 10 minutes. Okay, so tell me what I'm supposed to do.
To find the net interest income.
No, you find the gas. The gap is
RSA minus
RSA minus RSL, so it's
This coming exam?
it's too easy. Of course you're not gonna get it too easy. All right. So what's the
0.01 is the
how are you really
interest?
supposed to calculate it?
1 million, I mean 1 million, 100 million times 1%.
Times 1% by the votes.
200 million times 0.01
Well,
Minus.
0.01, yeah, 1%.
100 times 0.01.
Minus. Oh, this car's kind of
No, I
worried.
didn't do it like that to get mine.
The reason I'm going to suggest you do it like that
Net interest income.
is that if there's an uneven change, you're going to have to, yeah, you can round it, as long as you show me that you know what you're doing. So this calculates to what? This is million, by the way.
So that's this says yeah, 2 million minus 1 million, and you get 1 million as the net interest income.
All right? And the others are the same. You notice here that it's going to be what? Your liability more than your assets, and so what's going to happen there?
The deficit or
It's going to
decrease?
be a negative.
Negative figure, right.
Net
Alright.
interest income. All right? So for homework, you have to finish up 8. What am I saying?
What page is this, ma'am?
No, the PDF. The PDF, 238 on the PDF.
Would you repeat the number on the book?
On the book, every time I do that, I keep myself. And then get myself.
You have none.
Miss, perhaps you need an app to organize instead of the Google Drive. What app do I use? You know. But if you want, I think. Not sure. You see,
Yes, so, 8, so finish up 8 and do number 9, right?
8 and number 9.
What's the page number, miss?
It starts on 215, so it's 215 to 216. And please remember, remember that interest rate risk is covered on chapter 8 and chapter 9.
So you said to finish 8, right?
Hmm?
You said to finish number 8.
Yes.
This is too much.
Huh? So page 8 and number 9. So for, yeah. And please read chapter 8, chapter 9.
Oh, the miss.
I just came because I came late.
Show na lang.